Hi, this is Victoria Campisi with 1851 Franchise, and today I'm here with Edith Wiseman, president of FranDATA, for our Top Women in Franchising series. Thank you so much for joining us today, Edith.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So to get started, can you just share your journey to becoming a leader in franchising?
Yeah, sure. So FranDATA, we just had T-shirts created that say franchise brainiacs. And this is a term that I started putting into our proposals over, I don't know, I'd say a dozen years ago, because this really describes kind of who we are and the ethos of our business. So I think that my journey to becoming a leader in franchising really started when I was completely consumed with franchising. So people ask me, like, how could you possibly stay at a company for 26 plus years? And the answer is, I just love understanding franchise issues and figuring out information solutions. So just as a little, for instance, the fund score, it's a credit report and score proprietarily created by FranDATA. It's used by banks that finance 50% of all franchise loans. So over a decade ago, when we released the fund score, banks were making decisions based on kind of limited information or incorrect information. And by systematizing how one evaluates franchise risk, franchise systems are able to get banks to lend who weren't previously lending, especially to startup businesses, and to give better terms for franchisees. So this is the kind of stuff I just get passionate about. And I feel like when you're passionate, then you are naturally start to become a leader.
That's great. What are some unique challenges and opportunities for women in franchising?
Yeah, so I was at a lender conference, and there was a woman in the booth next to me, and she was working for a software company. So remember, this is a lender conference. And so I'm not expecting her to know anything about franchising. So I introduced myself and my company, and she's like, yeah, I used to work in franchising. Oh, okay. So I was a little surprised, and asked her about her experience. And she was like, well, I was doing franchise sales, and I was really good at it. But the owner of the franchisor and the CEO was a chauvinist pig, and he only promoted men. So that's distinctly a challenge for women that exist. But at the same time, there are more women, very incredibly strong women in franchising, and many of them are founders. And I think that because they're forging this unique growth path in franchising, and it's unique in that the business model really requires you to play nicely with others. And I think that's a skill set that women uniquely have. I will put a plug in there too that like demonstrates that there are more women that are helping other women rise. At FranDATA, the majority of our leadership team are women.
That's awesome. How do you define success in your role?
So there are a few ways I define success. I think the most important is that the folks on my team that I work with, that they trust me. And they trust my ability to see the business clearly and to help forge a successful path forward so that we're all seeing the same vision and working closely together. The other is helping employees achieve a really good balance between family and work. So we work really hard, but I never want people to sacrifice themselves or their family. This wasn't always the case for me. Before I had children, I would work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and didn't have an appreciation for why others didn't. I would say, in fact, I actually judged them and, felt like, why aren't they putting in more effort? So, yikes, I kind of think back with a little bit of disdain for myself. But, now I chuckle because I couldn't imagine doing that every day the way I used to. So that is another kind of important success metric for me.
Great. What advice would you give to franchisors who are looking to support female franchisees?
Create a female franchise group, or basically make a point to connect women owners with each other. A friend of mine owns a franchise, and she looks forward to the franchisee convention every year because she gets together with another female franchisee from across the country, and they just have a blast together, and they're each other's support networks. I think the other thing is at FranDATA, we study franchisees, we profile them, we understand like how many businesses they have, and then you get into like the personal stuff, and some of them have really seen tragedy, like lost a husband with 4 children. So I think there's 2 things that I take away from that. One is just make things easy for women. Women are juggling so much. Especially if they're part of like the sandwich generation where they're caring for kids and their parents. So the more that franchisors can make it easier for women to find information and communicate, then the more successful franchisees will be. But the other thing is just get to know your female franchisees personally. So they're juggling a lot. In my microcosm of my world, I have, a mommy group. And, in just the last week, one of my mommy friends' husband ended up in the hospital suddenly. Another mommy is going on vacation and she has to cut it short for a work trip. And she feels like she's missing the most important time for her children. Another mom's dealing with an ex-husband who's not picking up his weight. And another mom had a house fire and they had to temporarily find a new place to live. So anyway, you get the gist. Like, this is a group of very successful women who have a lot going on. And it's really important to get to know your franchisees personally to help them kind of navigate those times.
Definitely. What is your advice for women who want to enter the franchise industry?
Call me or LinkedIn with me.
Great. And then is there anything else that you think our audience should know?
The very first group that I joined in my early 20s was Women in Franchising. It really was an incredible experience being surrounded by women in the same industry. So I would say, stay tuned to anything that they're doing. They have a LinkedIn page, they give back, they host learning sessions, because you certainly will be a richer person because of it.
Great.
And, thank you, 1855, for highlighting women in franchising.
Of course. Well, that is everything that I have for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.